There are things no one ever teaches us, and yet we believe them anyway. Like the idea that love between two women is strange, unnatural, or even impossible. But where does that belief come from? From textbooks? From films? From the way adults talk? Or from somewhere deeper? Further back, what if a girl grew up in ancient Africa? Or in a mountain village in Southeast Asia? If her heart stirred for another girl, would her community call it wrong? A sickness? Or just a normal part of life? In this video, we're going on a journey across cultures, belief systems, and scientific claims to explore a question that seems simple but has caused endless debate. Is love between women natural, socially constructed, or something else entirely? For thousands of years, humans have tried to name, classify, and explain everything, even our most intimate emotions. Love, desire, all of it has been put under the microscope of science, ethics, and power. But when it comes to love between two women, things get murkier, not because it's rare, but because it's often erased. In many Western societies, it wasn't until the 19th century that lesbianism was given an official medical label. Doctors wrote case files about women who loved women, as if they were studying a new illness, but was naming it a form of recognition or control. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, no fancy words were needed. In South Africa, some communities had ancestor wives, women who married each other to continue the family line. In parts of Indonesia, female-female relationships were quietly accepted as part of village life. In Edo period Japan, Buddhist nuns sometimes spent their whole lives together, and that bond was seen as spiritual destiny. So how can the same experience be seen as natural in one place and deviant in another? The answer may have less to do with love itself, and more to do with who has the power to define what's right and wrong. When European empires expanded their colonies, they brought more than guns and laws. They brought their own definitions of gender and sexuality. Across Africa and Asia, relationships between women, once natural and unremarkable, were rebranded as unacceptable under colonial courts and missionary teachings. New laws were written based on a heteronormative family model, where men were heads of households and women were wives and mothers. Anything outside that model, including love between two women, was condemned as unnatural. But was that truly nature speaking? Or the voice of a system that wanted to dictate how people should love and live? Modern science didn't stay out of it either. Throughout the 20th century, psychologists, biologists, and neurologists asked the same question again and again. Are lesbians born this way, or shaped by environment? Some looked for a gay gene. Others scanned brain structures. But were they seeking understanding, or control? While Western science searched for answers in genes and hormones, other knowledge systems, from Eastern philosophy to traditional medicine, approached the question differently. Some saw desire as the flow of life energy. Others viewed love as a karmic bond beyond gender. Not right or wrong, just timely or not. So when we ask, is love between women natural? Maybe what we're really asking is, who gets to define nature, and for what purpose? Today, many LGBTQ+ movements around the world say, we were born this way. It's a strategy to claim legal protection, social recognition, and dignity. But even this powerful claim comes with limits. Because not every culture sees love through a biological lens. And not everyone needs to say, I couldn't help it, to deserve to be loved. In countries like Japan, Korea, and Vietnam, many women have had deep emotional bonds with other women. Without calling themselves lesbian, they saw it as a phase, a fate, or simply a part of life that didn't need a label. In some places, same-sex love isn't criminalized, but it also isn't acknowledged. It lives in a quiet in-between, both real and invisible. In Africa, feminist activists have pushed back not only against anti-gay laws, but also against Western media's narrow image of what a lesbian is. White, urban, middle class. They've shown that there are many ways for women to love, live with, and care for each other that don't fit any media stereotype. These differences tell us one thing. Love between women doesn't need a single answer. It doesn't have to be born this way or a learned behavior. It can be a part of who we are, a product of our surroundings, a free choice, or all of those at once. So why is the question, is love between women natural, still so controversial? Because behind the word natural, people aren't just talking about biology. They're talking about power, about norms, about who gets to live openly, and who has to hide to be seen as normal. If you want more untold histories and deeper perspectives like this, subscribe to know the full story. One video at a time. We're reclaiming what's been left out. When society labels love between women as unnatural, it's not just a neutral judgment. It's a tool, a way to exclude him from the stories we tell about family, morality, and the future. A way to say that only one kind of love, one kind of life, is allowed in the open. But the truth is, all over the world, despite silence and repression, women have loved each other, and still do. They write letters from prison. They live together for life, called only best friends. They raise children, hold funerals, nurse each other through illness. Even when no one calls them wives, they exist, like an underground current, quiet but relentless, pushing through every boundary and definition. They didn't love that way because they were born like that. And not because they were trying to rebel. They loved that way because that's how their hearts beat. And maybe, nothing is more natural than that. Modern science has tried to answer the question, is love between two women something you're born with, or something shaped by the world around you? Some scientists searched for a gay gene, hoping to find a strand of DNA that makes someone love the same gender. Others scanned the brain, comparing images of straight and lesbian women to find structural differences. A few studies suggested that lesbian attraction might be linked to prenatal hormones or subtle brain differences. But those differences were usually tiny, inconsistent, and never strong enough to draw clear conclusions. There's no lesbian gene, no specific brain type. Science has never found any proof that loving women is unnatural. But it also can't say that it's purely inborn. The problem lies in how the question is asked. When we ask, is it biological? We're already assuming that only genes, hormones, or brain patterns count as real. But that's not a neutral question, it reflects a cultural bias. A belief that natural must mean fixed, unchangeable, unlearned, unchosen. In contrast, many non-Western knowledge systems, from traditional Asian medicine to African philosophy, don't divide natural and social the way Western science does. They see emotions and desires as shaped by temperament, environment, relationships, no sharp lines, no need to prove something is real just because it exists. So did science give us a clear answer? No, not because there hasn't been enough research, but because the question, is it inborn, was always too narrow. Large studies in neurobiology, genetics, and behavioral psychology, across the US, Europe, and Australia, have all tried to find biological markers for sexual orientation. Some suggest prenatal hormones might influence attraction or gender perception. Others find slight differences in brain structure between lesbian and straight women. But none of these findings are stable or predictable. They can't be replicated consistently. And none are unique enough to define what a lesbian is. No specific gene, no single brain area, no hormone level that guarantees anything. In other words, there's no scientific evidence strong enough to prove that same-sex love between women is entirely inborn. But also no evidence to deny that it's a natural part of human experience. In fact, many scientists have started asking a different question. Instead of searching for a biological cause, they ask, why does society need a biological explanation in order to accept a kind of love? Why must there be a gene in order to be loved? Meanwhile, in many non-Western traditions, Natural doesn't mean biological. They accept that feelings are shaped by temperament, circumstance, and connection, without forcing people to pick between born this way or made this way. In the end, honest science doesn't say that lesbian love is deviant, wrong, or learned. It simply says, it's one part of the vast spectrum of human experience, as diverse as humanity itself. And if there's anything unnatural, it's the effort by some systems of power to turn diversity into a problem. But what if a woman loves both men and women? Does that mean her feelings for other women are just a phase? A passing interest? Actually, it's the existence of women who love across genders, or whose feelings shift over time, that has forced researchers to rethink their old assumptions. Not everyone has a fixed orientation. Not everyone feels they must choose a side to live honestly. Many people, especially women, describe their romantic lives as fluid. Sometimes leaning one way, sometimes toward no category at all. That doesn't make love between women less real. It shows that this kind of love isn't reserved for a group born that way, but is part of the wider spectrum of what it means to be human. In many cultures, especially in Asia and Africa, a woman who once loved her female best friend and later married a man is not seen as contradictory. She's not labeled bisexual, and she doesn't need a category. It's simply a chapter in her life, not something to prove. Just something to feel fully in the moment. So instead of asking, is it real, or is it serious? Maybe the better question is, why must a woman love only one way, one gender, one time, in order for her love to be considered valid? You might now be wondering, do all these ideas apply to men who love men? In part, yes. Heteronormative laws, scientific bias, and social pressure have also weighed heavily on gay men, labeling them as sick, unnatural, criminal, or immoral. But there are also key differences. Male same-sex love has often been seen as a threat to masculinity, to social order, to traditional power, so it has been more directly punished, criminalized, demonized, and feared. In contrast, female same-sex love, in many places, was dismissed, ignored, or erased, treated not as dangerous, but as invisible, called just a phase, or just friendship. This video focuses on the experiences of women, not because their love matters more, but because it has been heard less. And that silence has meant that, for centuries, many women have had to love in the shadows, without being named, without being believed, without being seen as real. But when we look at the full picture, from unnamed romances in Asian history, to neuroscience research in the West, from African indigenous communities, to equality movements in Latin America, one truth becomes clear: love between women is not an exception. It is a deep, enduring part of human experience. Natural is not a fixed label for sorting right from wrong. Nature is diversity itself. It's shaped by time, by culture, by circumstance. What we call natural isn't written in genes, nor dictated by law or theology. It is rewritten every day by people who live, who love, and who search for meaning. So instead of asking, is this kind of love natural? Maybe we should ask, why does a sincere, harmless emotion need to be justified with the word natural at all? And can we imagine a world where no one has to prove they are worthy of love? If one thing is certain, it's this: women have loved each other in the past. They are loving each other now. And they will keep loving, whether that love is named or not. And if you're still wondering, why was this history hidden? Who gets to write the stories that survive? Then you may be touching the very thing that generations of women have felt, who lived, who loved, and were forced into silence. Because when love isn't named, isn't recorded, isn't believed, not just memory is erased, but the future is narrowed too. But if today, we can speak, listen, and call by name what was once denied, then maybe we can begin to open a wider world. One where love doesn't need permission from biology or society to exist. And maybe, after this video, you'll see a hand held, a hug between two women. Not with judgment, but with the understanding that there are many ways to love, and all of them deserve to be lived fully, just as they are. If you want more untold histories and deeper perspectives like this, subscribe to know the full story. One video at a time. We're reclaiming what's been left out.